What's up, guys? I'm Irishelle, and this is The End Times. This is the seventh and thankfully the last part of our The Four Beasts of Daniel 7 series. As we discussed in our fifth video, The Four Beasts of Daniel 7, The Fourth Beast Part 1, the fourth beast as a king is Lucifer, who is also called Abaddon. He is described as being terrifying, which also means awesome, as in deserving reverence, like the name of God, which was Lucifer's original sin of trying to be equal to God the Father. He is also the king of terror, which is why Daniel describes the fourth beast as being dreadful and why he goes to destruction. He is stronger than any of the other beasts, which is why Leviathan needs his help to take down the strong fortresses. In our sixth video, The Four Beasts of Daniel 7, The Fourth Beast Part 2, we discussed that the 10 horns on Abaddon's head are the 10 kings that will receive royal power from the beast. The beast will also divide the land of Israel among other nations to give each of the 10 kings a kingdom of their own. The 10 kings will then give their authority, power, and land to Abaddon, who will then form the fourth kingdom, which is Mystery Babylon. This is why John records in Revelation chapter 17 that Mystery Babylon is carried in or established by Abaddon. These 10 kings then rule over Mystery Babylon, or the fourth kingdom, with Abaddon for 1 hour. The reason they only get 1 hour with Abaddon is because 3 of the 10 kings are cut down by the Man of Lawlessness as he rises to power. The Man of Lawlessness is the son of destruction, since Abaddon is Hebrew for the word destruction. You could read that as the Man of Lawlessness is the son of Abaddon. If you haven't seen any of those 2 videos yet, I would pause this video and go check those 2 videos out first, as they are the foundation of this video. Now, with that said, what is the Man of Lawlessness doing at this time, other than ruling from the throne of God as he proclaims himself to be God and tries to completely destroy the church? Well, look with me at the second part of Daniel chapter 7, verse 25 through 26. And shall think to change the times and the law, and they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away to be consumed and destroyed to the end. He tries to change the times and the law. Now, for the sake of time, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I believe the times that he is trying to change is the amount of time he has on the earth, his dominion, and his authority. The reason he's trying to change that is because it's prophesied that he will only have a time, times, and half a time, which is about 3.5 years. Now, the reason he tries changing the law is because the law is the foreshadowing of the coming of Jesus and Jesus conquering death and Hades. The reason he has to change this is because this is how Jesus buys back his children. Now, we were once separated from Jesus, so we were once separated from God. In fact, we were once the enemy of God. But now, through the redeeming blood of Jesus, we are reconciled to him once again. So it would only make sense that the Man of Lawlessness goes after these 2 things, because if he can change them, then he can change his future. Now, it says that they shall be given into his hand for about 3.5 years. I don't believe that that Daniel sees is given into his hand. I don't think that is the times and the law, because it specifically says that he will think to change the times and the law. It never says that he actually does it. So the only thing that is actually given into his hand is the church, because the first part of Daniel 7 verse 25 states, he shall speak words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Now, with that said, I don't want you to be discouraged, because look at what the very next verse says. But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away to be consumed and destroyed to the end. Now, that was Daniel chapter 7 verse 26. His dominion is taken away and destroyed. Look at how Jesus puts it, Matthew chapter 24, verse 22. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Who cuts these days short? Jesus does. How does the man of lawlessness die? Let's go back to Paul. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 8. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will kill with the breath of his mouth and bring to nothing by the appearance of his coming. So the man of lawlessness's time is cut short by the coming of Jesus. What is Jesus coming back for? His people. This is what we know as the rapture. And for more on the rapture and when it takes place regarding the end times, check out our videos, the rapture and the great tribulation, which are under our end times category. Now with that said, the man of lawlessness is the last to come. Then the rapture will take place, and finally the wrath of God. So we know that the man of lawlessness, he dies, but what happens to the 4 beasts and the 10 horns? Well, let's go back to Daniel 7. Daniel 7, chapter 11, verse 12. I looked then because of the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking. And as I looked, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. So the 4th beast is killed and thrown into the lake of fire. Revelation chapter 17 verse 14 confirms this. It says, they will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful. These kings, Abaddon and the man of lawlessness, they all go to war against Jesus, but they are defeated, and Abaddon and the man of lawlessness are both destroyed. Now, the kings, they're not yet destroyed. I want you to look at Revelation chapter 6, verse 15 through 17. It says, then the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals and the rich and the powerful and everyone, slave and free, hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains, calling to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, hide us from the face of him who is seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? Now, this now makes sense why during the wrath of God, Satan, the beast, and the false prophet have to send out demonic spirits to convince the kings of the earth to go to war against the Lamb. Revelation chapter 16, verse 12 through 16. The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet 3 unclean spirits like frogs. For they are demonic spirits performing signs, who go abroad to the kings of the whole world to assemble them for battle on the great day of God the Almighty. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake, keeping his garments on, and he may not go about naked and be seen exposed. And they assembled them at the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. They needed to send out the 3 unclean spirits like frogs so that the kings of the earth would go to battle against Jesus. This is important because, as we read just a few minutes ago in Revelation chapter 6 verse 15 through 17, the kings of the earth were crying out to the rocks to fall on them and kill them because the wrath of the Lamb had come. And none could withstand that. Not even Lucifer, who is also known as Abaddon. And Lucifer couldn't withstand it, and neither could the man of lawlessness. Now, this is why Satan, the beast, and the false prophet, they all had to send out those unclean spirits to, in a way, possess the kings of the earth, so that they would go to war against the Lamb for a second time. So now we're at Armageddon, and we pick up what happens next in Revelation chapter 19, verse 19 through 21. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies gathered to make war against him who was sitting on the horse and against his army. And the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet, who in its presence had done the signs by which he deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped its image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur, and the rest were slain by the sword that came from the mouth of him who was sitting on the horse, and all the birds were gorged with their flesh. The beast and the false prophet are captured and thrown into the lake of fire. The kings of the earth and their armies are slain by the sword that came out of the mouth of Jesus and were then eaten by the birds. So far, we have the kings of the earth and their armies just slain. We have the false prophet and the beast in the lake of fire. We have the Man of Lawlessness slaughtered. And we have the fourth beast, who is Abaddon. We have him in the lake of fire as well. Now, what happens to Satan? Well, let's keep reading. On to Revelation chapter 20, verse 1 through 3. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding in his hand the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain. And he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the pit, and shut it and sealed it over him, so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be released for a little while. Now, after the 1,000-year reign of Christ, Satan is released for a short time and goes to deceive the nations that are left on the earth. Revelation chapter 20, verse 7 through 10. And when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea, and they marched up over the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, but fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now, I won't go into great detail about what happens during the wrath of God or during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. We'll get into that in some other videos, but the only thing I want to clarify is that those who go through the wrath of God, they don't die. The only one who dies are the kings of the earth and their armies, and the beast and the false prophet. They're both thrown into the lake of fire alive. I believe that this is why the kings of the earth were crying out to the rocks to fall on them to kill them, because they knew that the wrath of God was coming, and they knew that they would have to endure all of that without death. They would have to make it. They would have to go through each of the 7 bowls of the wrath of God, each of the 7 plagues, without dying. So I think that's why they were crying out to the rocks. Now, with that said, those that are deceived on the earth are those who went through the 7 plagues of God, the wrath of God, because, as I just said, they don't die. Now, the only thing that dies during the wrath of God are the creatures of the sea. And we also have to bring to remembrance that those who go up in the rapture and those who are raised from the dead and are transformed in the blinking of an eye and given imperishable bodies, that all happens prior to the wrath of God. And once they are given those imperishable bodies, they can't be deceived again. So those deceived cannot be anyone who escaped the wrath of God. And after they're deceived by Satan, again they go to attack the church, the New Jerusalem. But fire comes down from heaven and consumes them all. Then Satan is thrown into the lake of fire forever. So those that are during the 1,000-year reign that actually are deceived, again, after Satan is released from the bottomless pit, they go to attack Jerusalem, which is supposed to also be the bride of Christ. So how can the bride of Christ be attacking itself? So it has to be those that went through the wrath of God, because they do not die. After this comes the last judgment, which we'll talk about in another video. So just to sum everything up for you guys, the fourth beast, seen as a king, is Lucifer, who is also known as Abaddon. He is described as being terrifying, which also means awesome, as in deserving reverence, like the name of God, which was Lucifer's original sin of trying to be equal to God the Father. He is also the king of terror, which is why Daniel describes the fourth beast as being dreadful and why he goes to destruction. He is stronger than any of the other beasts, which is why Leviathan needs his help to take down the strong fortresses. The 10 horns are the 10 kings that the beast will give royal authority and which he will also divide the land for. The land divided up includes the land of Israel, and it is then formed into Mystery Babylon by Abaddon. The little horn is the Man of Lawlessness, whose dominion is cut short and killed by the coming of Jesus. Abaddon is also killed when Jesus comes back to get his bride, which is the church, and he is then thrown into the lake of fire. Satan and the beast and the false prophet then send out evil spirits to convince the kings of the earth to go to war against Jesus for a second time. But Jesus kills the kings of the earth and their armies by the sword of his mouth, and the beast and the false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire alive. Satan is then chained up in the bottomless pit during the 1,000-year reign of Christ, and after that he was released to wage war along with those who took the mark of the beast, and they will go to war against Jerusalem and the church. And when they do that, fire comes down from heaven and burns up all of the people who attacked the church in Jerusalem, which is everyone who went through the wrath of God, those who took the mark of the beast. And then Satan is thrown into the lake of fire for all eternity. After this, that is the last judgment, and that was a lot. I hope this all made sense and that we cleared up any questions that you guys may have had about the 4 beasts of Daniel 7 and their end. And if you feel that we maybe left something out or didn't explain everything clearly, or maybe this just made absolutely no sense to you, please let us know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. And until next time, God bless.